What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm joined again by Brandon Emslie, who's recently won his WNBF Natural Bodybuilding Pro Card. Winning a Pro Card is a big deal, and it took Brandon 11 years of competing before accomplishing it. In our conversation, Brandon shares his insights about the journey, what it was like to win, and much more. You're going to absolutely love this conversation. So without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome back, Brandon. I'm excited for part two.
Yeah, man, it should be good. I'm excited to be back on. Thanks for having me.
The last time we did this, I'm really excited because the last time that we did this, you were right in the middle of your 2025 contest season. I think you were right in between the shows that you did. You just finished no, it wasn't it was the BC Cup, right?
Yeah.
You just finished the BC Cup and you were gearing up to do the WNBF Kelowna. It was like a week or two away from when we recorded. I released the episode, and then the next day you ended up competing, or that was the day you ended up competing. And it was awesome. But before I give anything away, my question is, how would you describe that season? How would you say that season went?
It went very well. Like there was a bit more experimentation with this season compared to in the past. But I would say it was really good. It was a little bit shorter than I was expecting it to be, which I can kind of go into that a little bit later on if you want. But no, man, overall, like just how things were set up with the prep, doing that pre-prep phase, getting 10 pounds within the stage weight, everything just was like very smoothly down. And then I think it just really helped me come out of prep too. Like, um, I wasn't too wrecked, like hormonally. I wasn't too beat up from the diet, but I think that's probably due to not having as long of a season, kind of cutting it a little bit short due to the result that I got. But no, man, it was really fun. Yeah, it was nice to do it with my girlfriend and have Adrian competing there as well. Um, so yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
You had the whole team with you. There's the camaraderie along the way. Can you I want to ask you more about the result. You mentioned that the season ended a little bit shorter because of the results, so we'll get to that. But before that, can you describe a little bit about, you said you mentioned the when you started the prep itself, you're within 10 pounds of your stage weight. Can you describe like that overall process, the structure of your prep, and how you kind of set yourself in a position to be like kind of within that relatively close striking distance, 10 pounds?
Yeah, so when I set up this prep, like I did what is known as like the pre-prep cut, like Team 3DMJ kind of, I think they coined that term. Or when you're deep into your off season, you kind of bulk up to a certain weight. Usually it's closer to like the top end of where your body fat generally likes to sit, and you higher, you kind of get, it's kind of hard to continue pushing up. But I kind of got up to there. I was around like 195. I might have even got up to like 200 at one point. And I spent, I believe it was probably about 2 to 3 months, going from there down to about 180, which 180 is roughly about 10 pounds up from my stage weight. Came down there, held for a bit. So by the time I got to that 180 mark, hunger and stuff was getting a little bit higher. Food focus was getting a little bit higher. So to kind of dissipate that, just went into maintenance. So brought my calories back up to maintenance. Um, Held there for, I can't actually remember. I think it was 2 to 3 months or something like that, where I was slightly gaining over time, but it was in such a small surplus that I probably only gained like a pound or so during that phase. And then by the time I went to start that prep, like my appetite, my food focus was way down. Like I was refreshed, I was good to go. And then I started the fat loss phase from there, and I just kind of slowly trickled down around a pound or so per week. Towards the end, it slowed down a little bit more, as we generally tend to be a little bit more at risk for muscle loss during the end of the competition prep, so I kind of just slowed it down by just naturally adding in an extra refeed. Um, but so that's kind of how I set it up going into that competition prep.
I've got one question that immediately comes to mind. It's a little bit of a selfish question because I'm going through something similar right now. Like I'm doing a pre-prep diet myself, and I'm thinking about, so this is applicable to me, but I think maybe people who are listening who are also going through any kind of a diet phase that are thinking about transitioning into a maintenance. So I'm thinking for myself, like I'm going to transition to a maintenance phase before I start into my official prep diet, and I'm wondering that that turnover period when you shift from the pre-prep diet where you went from around 200 to 180 to that maintenance phase. What was that? What were some of the changes that you made? Like, did you make a sudden shift where you just increased your calories by 500, or did you kind of like, how did you change things to shift into your maintenance specifically? I'm wondering for, again, for myself, because I'm thinking about, like, I wonder how I'm going to do that when I get to my maintenance phase exactly. And also, like, I know I have like clients myself that they are going to transition and they have been transitioning into their own maintenance phases, like what's going to be the best way for them to do it. So I'm wondering what your experience was like as far as that goes.
Yeah, like it was pretty smooth because like everything literally just stayed the same. It was just the calories came up slightly. Like all my habits I was doing, I was still getting around the same amount of steps per day. I was still training 4 days per week at that time. So like essentially with my calories, looking back at it, I think I was around 2,700 calories during that deficit for that pre prep cut phase. I don't believe I had a specific refeed involved in that one, but I did have a little bit more looseness with it. Like if there was like a vent going on, I'd probably generally just eat at maintenance. Or if there was like, yeah, like if I was going somewhere on like a trip or something like that, I would have a little bit more wiggle room. But with like tracking food for a very large period of time, now I have a pretty good guesstimation, the guesstimation skills when it comes to like estimating things. So there was some times where I was probably a little bit higher than that. But for the most part, yeah, I was eating around like 2,700 calories all the way down. Once I went into that transition, I literally just bumped my calories up to around 3,200 because I was probably about a pound or so. Because thinking back to it, I think I was actually 190 when I started the official like pre-prep phase, because it wouldn't make sense to cut that much within that 3 month time frame. So yeah, I think it was about 190 or 195 when I initially cut it. But yeah, once I got there, I just brought my calories back up to maintenance, held there, had the same habits in place. Um, if there was any times where I'm like, okay, like I did eat a little bit more than like maintenance, I would sometimes just bring the couple days after down just slightly, just to make the full like weekly calorie amount at maintenance, so I wasn't kind of causing myself to gain too much weight. Um, so yeah, doing little things like that, but for the most part, man, like the habit of like tracking at that point was so like dialed in that it didn't seem like an extra stressor. I know some people when they do a fat loss phase and then they try to hold, do you see their weight climbing up too much, or they kind of give a little bit loosen the ropes too much. But I was pretty much just doing the exact same stuff that I was doing during the fat loss, just a little bit extra calories. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I the way that I have things set up, and I'm working with Jeff right now too, and I mean he'll have the reins on this, but I'm thinking like it'll probably be something similar with me where I'll bump up my calories by 500 and or somewhere around that. And my golden tool for refeeds or bumping calories like during prep is just like rice cakes. So like super easy, 2 packs of plain rice cakes. There's my extra 500 calories. Eat those with a couple of meals, and it's like a piece of rice cake. Okay. When you did the official prep itself, shifting from the maintenance phase into the prep diet, so you're about 10 pounds over stage weight at that point. I know we talked about this in pretty good detail in our last conversation, but can you describe what that process was like as far as like the difficulty level, specific challenges you faced, or was it like, did you find like it was pretty smooth?
Yeah, for the most part, like that, this past prep was definitely the easiest one. I think it was also like thinking that I was going to be pushing harder like after this last show, but because of the results I didn't. Um, so I think having that in the back of my mind too kind of made me think, okay, I'm going to be in this for longer. So like when you have that perspective of things being longer, generally like I don't know, it just seemed kind of easier from like a mental perspective. But yeah, so pretty much when I did start that competition prep, I was doing 5 low days, so 5 days in a calorie deficit, or no, I think it was 6 days in a calorie deficit, and then one refeed. And then as the prep went on, I believe I shifted it to two refeeds, and then there was, I believe, 1 or 2 weeks towards the end that I had three refeeds in that full week. So it's just kind of decreasing the deficit just a little bit more. And then I think it was just one diet break where I just brought things back to maintenance calories for a whole entire week and then went back into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you ever find Did you find that there were any weeks in particular where you're like, wow, this is getting really hard? Like, where you get that feeling where all of a sudden fatigue gets tough and like you feel it in your training sessions? Or was it kind of just like that gradual, like slow loss of energy that you feel? Or what was that like as far as difficulty level goes?
So for the most part, it's hard to think back of sometimes when you get out of prep for so long, and then because I guess it's almost been just over 3 months or so now since that prep. But yeah, for the most part, I never got to the point where I felt like there's cement blocks in my feet where I was like dragging to get to places. I felt that in previous preps, but this one I didn't quite get there. Um, I think one of the biggest reasons why is anytime I started feeling more like a little bit of that extreme symptom, like with like either my irritability is just much higher than it usually is, or I'm just noticing like okay, a little bit more of a dip in training. Um, I was like, I would just implement like an extra refeed, or I'd do a diet break before I almost felt I really needed it. In the past, I've always been bad for like, oh no, I'm good. I can keep pushing through. Like I'll just do anything. Um, I just run myself into the ground, and then once I actually had that diet break, like it helped. But like I was still quite messed up throughout that diet break, and so this time around, I was just trying to be very what you call it, doing things like ahead of time before it happens. So before I feel that crazy symptom, I implement the refeed. Or before I'm starting to notice, okay, things are starting to dip with strength or gym performance. I try to implement that diet break. So I was just trying to do things ahead of time before I got into like the nitty gritty with it. So I never really experienced like extreme levels of hunger. There was like, it's funny because like at both those shows, like so many guys were like, "Oh man, I can't wait for this meal tonight," and I'm like, "Man, like I'm good. I just want to go have a shower." So like I think a part of that too is I didn't quite get as conditioned as I did the previous year. I didn't quite push to that same degree. So I do think once you hit a certain level of conditioning, to get there again isn't too bad. Your body's more like accepting of it. Whereas if you push back and you get into some new zones of it, I think even Dirk talked about this in one of his YouTube videos too, where it's like, oh, it didn't even seem hard at all to get to this point. But then after he was like getting to that extreme suffering. So I think with this prep, like since I was doing it mainly for men's physique, I didn't quite cross that threshold of getting into like the nitty gritty with it. And I think that's also why this recovery, like I'm only up like 10 pounds since the show. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been slowest to learn is exactly what you've described. Like from all of the preps that I've done is like it's really easy for us contest preppers to just try to dig harder and harder because it's kind of like this ego thing where we think that like if we the more we suffer, the better we feel we should do, or the better we feel will look when it's the prep. But it's such a weird concept that it's like almost counterintuitive in that really I think like you mentioned, it's probably smarter, more strategic to be proactive and try to avoid digging yourself into too much of a hole when like you don't need to, when it's not appropriate. So it's kind of like this idea that you shouldn't just suffer for the sake of suffering, and that like there's more strategy involved, and you can actually afford to not really do more. I don't want to say do more work, but like do put yourself in a position of feeling more uncomfortable than you need to feel, I suppose. It's interesting too, isn't it? Like you mentioned, like Dirk, even like he gets to a point where, like, you know, and he gets arguably, I remember the first time that I saw him in the socials. Like, I don't know about you, but like when 3DMJ was like posting content about him and he was posting content about himself, and you're looking at him and you're like, how is he that lean? And he seems okay. Um, but it's kind of interesting, right? Where and Alberto too, like Alberto's in his prep and he's been posting recently, and he's absolutely like right now, it's like at least his from what he's shown, he looks like more peeled than most of us will ever get to, and it seems like he's okay for the most part. It's like 3 months out, and he's just like he's not that far away. But it's isn't that weird how it's like different people tend to feel lower body fat percentages differently. Like from my perspective, the level of leanness that he's at right now, like I'm thinking if I was that level of leanness, like I would be hurting more than he is. So it's like, I don't know, that's interesting, isn't it?
100%, man. I remember before I did this prep, even last prep, like I just in my mind I was just like, okay, he must be just like lying, or he must just be like have a very extreme high pain tolerance to this. But I think it's a combination of, yeah, probably been being there before, having those tools and everything. But I do think there is something along the lines of our body that's allowing us to get there and thinking it's safe. Like, okay, you got to this level last time, you didn't die. Okay, next time you do it, it's probably fine. So it's just when you get to those more extremes, like I'm sure Dirk, next time he competes again to get to the level he did this time, it might be even easier. And then he might be able to even push. I don't even know how we can get even leaner than he did. Like, he was pretty inside out. Um, but yeah, like for you, for your last prep, like how many weeks out were you when you started feeling like those extreme symptoms of prep, where you're like dragging your feet, like irritability's high and like just very lethargic and stuff like that?
I remember a significant kind of fatigue milestone when I was like 10 weeks out from my first competition. It was also when I think part of the reason I'm remembering this was when I also had like a little bit of a like it wasn't really an like a lower back spasm. Like I was doing RDLs and like it just went out just a little bit. It wasn't a legit injury. It like was completely better within 48 hours. But I remember it was like fatigue was starting to set in. That happened. It was like, okay, I think it's affecting training more than it has up to this point. So I remember that being a thing. And then um, I was working with Jeff at the time for that prep, and he was at that point, he's like, okay, diet break time, we're lean enough at this point, we do the diet break and then we'll push a little bit harder for stage time. And then from that point onwards, did the diet break, recharged a little bit just for about 7-8 days, and then for the next 9-10 weeks or so, that was when it got tough. It was like the lowest calories I'd eaten during a prep before, I think, and that's when I could feel it. But you know, so much of it is psychological, mental, right? I remember because the prep was really long. I think it was like 8 or 9 months that I started prepping before the first show, and then I did like my season was like 2.5 months long, so it was like almost 11 months of like prepping. But I remember like being like 3 or 4 months in. So I was like 4 months out from the first show still, and being like, oh man, like it's the evening and I'm already starting to get hungry. So that was tough. But it was mostly just a mental struggle, I think. Like my energy levels were still good. It was more just like, man, I got to keep managing the calorie restriction for a long time still. And at the time that was tough to mentally grasp for me, but I'm glad I did it. It wasn't my first prep either, but I remember like I have a specific memory sitting on the couch. It was like April and I wasn't going to compete until September. And I'm thinking, holy crap, like I've got a lot of months being hungry in the evening. Um, have you felt that like the kind of being able to mentally grasp experiencing like a caloric restriction for a long period of time. Have you ever like struggled with it specifically from a mental standpoint?
Yeah. So when I did my prep in 2023, I was kind of the same as you. Around week 10 to 8 weeks out, I was like, oh, okay, like now I'm in prep. Like now, like I'm feeling these crazy symptoms. Um, and then from there on out, the rest of that prep, yeah, it was pretty tough. And then like the two preps prior to that that got canceled. At the same thing, like 10, 8 weeks out, I was like, holy, it's like I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And then like those ones got canceled anyway, so it wasn't like a big issue. But then
Yeah.
yeah, the one that I did with Jeff, like I was still able to push through and stuff like that, and I was feeling more of those severe symptoms of like, man, like I don't know how much more I can take of this. And then even when I did that prep, um, the after the second show, the Vancouver show, like there was the Kelowna show coming up as well, and I'm like, man, I don't think I have it in me to continue pushing. Because I think Jeff was saying, "Oh, we can maybe get a little bit leaner," and I'm like, "Man, I think I'm good for now." Like I did, so yeah, I definitely have gotten to those kind of that kind of mental space for sure.
It's funny, the like 3DMJ, the 3DMJ coaches have been criticized for like being too soft of coaches, right? Like you've heard that before.
Yeah,
Um, but my experience, like working with Jeff, he pushed the crap out of me, and I'm like very happy about it. Like that was one of my goals with him for that 2023 prep was like I want elite level conditioning, and man, he helped get me basically as close as I was capable of. But I had a moment too. It wasn't before my first show, but it was like between shows 3 and 4 or 2 and 3. I can't remember, where it was like leading into peak week. And he's like, "Okay, let's just." Or it was for the peak week itself. He's like, "Okay, our peak week meals are going to be a little bit lower. We're going to drop the carbs by 20."
yeah,
And I like fought him on that. I didn't fight him, but I was like, "Jeff, can we keep those 20 carbs?" And it's just like 80 calories. But that was my little bit of pushback. But no, they're great. They push very hard. That's for sure. Appropriately hard, I should say.
yeah.
Um, okay. So can you can you describe how your shows went?
So I guess we already talked about the BC Cup. So this last show of the year, the WNBF, I guess Kelowna show, went very well. I ended up getting my pro card in men's physique. I did hop into the bodybuilding category as well because I had a bodybuilding client competing, and there wasn't quite enough people for a pro card. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna hop in. I'm gonna try to give these guys a chance for a pro card. Ended up coming third in there. My client came second. And yeah, no, so that was a lot of fun. And then did the men's physique class. I was originally going to do classic physique as well. But I was thinking, I was talking to, actually, I can talk about this too. So I got Anthony Poon to help me with the peaking because with the previous show, I was just getting way too in my head about things. I find with prep, prep brain, you get very anxious. You're like, you second guess yourself a lot. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to handle this. I'm just going to give this to you. So I followed his game plan for the peaking. Um, and like he helped me out a lot. And yeah, he was talking about, okay, if the main goal is men's physique, you don't want to be doing bodybuilding, classic, and men's physique because just to peak properly for all of those is going to be a challenging thing. And by the time you hit men's physique, you're going to be already so tired that's going to be hard to hold poses and stuff like that. So okay, I'll just do two of them then. So that's what I ended up doing. Um, when I did men's physique, um, yeah, like I think this was probably the best peak I would say I've had. We did a bit of a different approach to it than I've done in the past. Like he's big on doing fat loading on the first 2 days of the week. So on the Monday and the Tuesday, like I was at 110 grams of fat on Monday and 140 grams on Tuesday. I've done like moderate fat loads in the past just to deplete carbs and keep the calories about the same, but I've never taken it this extreme. And like my body just seemed to respond quite well to the fat loading. Like I was pretty much the most vascular I've ever been in my life from like the 140 grams of fat on the Tuesday. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we did the carb load. So We did more of a moderate one on the Wednesday, which I think it was around 600 grams of carbs. Then the Tuesday was, or the Thursday was, what was it? I think it was 750 grams of carbs. And then when I woke up on Friday, we were looking at my physique and okay, I'm starting to look a little faded, a little spilled. So we pulled back to like 600 grams of carbs on that Friday. And then come the morning of the show, woke up still just very slightly spilled. So we just kind of chilled for a bit. One of his approaches was just to kind of lie back down. Um, for in terms of like tightening up, it seems to like if like anytime you like go back to bed or go back to sleep, you tend to tighten up really well. So like we woke up to the post, okay, you're still slightly spilled, went back to bed, lied back down, woke up again, was actually starting to flatten out slightly, got like 100 grams of carbs, and then went to the show. But yeah, so that's kind of just how like the peaking approach went. Um, and then for the men's physique class, um, it was definitely a big classic. I think this was probably one of the most competitive Kelowna shows there have been. I think there wasn't. I believe there was the same amount of people in the Kelowna show, but it just the level seemed to come up a little bit more. Um, so yeah, in my class, I was in the tall class. When they brought us out, I was dead center at first, but then I think it was they took us through like 2 or 3 quarter turns, and then they put me to the side, I believe. So I wasn't in the center anymore. So in my mind, I'm like, oh shit, like, am I not gonna take it again? And then like closer to the end, they put me back into the middle. So I'm like, okay, this may be a good sign. Um, Posing, I found with my men's physique posing, I wasn't flaring out my lats quite enough. I've had issues with it in the past. I don't know if it's a little bit of nerves, if it's a little bit of tightness, but I did notice that my lat wasn't popping out as much as it has in the past. Um, so I was a little bit nervous with the posing there. Um, but since they brought me back to center towards the end, I was like, okay, like, I think I have a really, really good shot at this. And I just remember waiting backstage to come on for the awards, and there was something just hit me like emotionally where I'm like something like was like pretty much telling me like, okay, like in my mind, I was like, okay, I got this. Like there's just a lot of emotions, like, okay, like I don't know if I won, but like there's just a strong sense of okay, like you're gonna win this, man. Um, so I just felt all this emotion, and then coming out onto the stage, and then yeah, finally getting my my name called last. I was like, oh shit, like I actually did it, man. Is pretty surreal for sure.
Oh man. I remember in our last conversation, I think I remember I asked you like what your goal was for the season, but I'm curious, I want to ask you now, when you were going into that season throughout the entirety of the prep, like were you thinking like, man, this is the prep that I'm gonna get my pro card? That's my first question. The second question is, can you how many preps, and I know I've asked you this before too, but what number of show was this? How many preps have you done?
Gotcha. So with this prep, that was definitely like a big goal. Like that was definitely like on the top part of it. But like we were chatting about in the last podcast, like you never know for certain who's going to show up, how the show is going to go, and like the judges, like what they're going to think in terms of because it's a subjective sport. Um, so like that was my main goal was just to bring my all-time best package to the stage for men's physique, and I believe that's what I did. In terms of the second question with how many shows I've done, um, so I have done, I believe that was my eighth show. I was actually talking to Adrian on our podcast like a couple episodes ago about how that was actually only my second show competing in the WNBF, but I've done a lot of shows through the federation at the time was the BCA,
Yeah.
which I made to like nationals and stuff like that. But that,
Wow.
and then I've done like the CPA. I've done I think 3 or 4 shows with them, um, and then with I've done a lot of preps that got canceled due to COVID that I was going to compete for the WNBF, but it just didn't happen due to COVID. So yeah, there was just a lot of like, okay, like originally, like the goal was back in like 2020 to be like, okay, like I'm gonna try to get my pro card this season, and in 2021, okay, I'm gonna try. Oh, but got canceled both in 2020 and 2021 due to COVID, and then last time I competed, like in the 2023, I was wanting to get the pro card there, but I was focusing more on like bodybuilding, more of the men's physique, and then I think that created my look not to be quite as good for men's physique. Um, so yeah, it's been quite the process.
What is the span of time between the first prep versus this prep? How many years have you been competing?
So the first prep was 2014, um,
2014, then
and
you won
then
2025. So it's
yeah,
11 years.
yeah.
Crazy,
So
crazy.
yeah,
That's amazing. I think the coolest personally, big general statement, but I think some of the coolest stories of like athletes winning competitions and their pro cards is like, after you've been going at it for years, a long time, and like just never giving up and always aiming for the next competition even after you're not always happy with the outcome in prior years or after prior preps. And I don't know, I just think it's awesome, like competing for 11 years even if they weren't all WNBF shows, like you're trying to get better for every one of them. And I don't know. I think that's awesome. 11 years later and you won your pro card. I really admire that. I like stories like you, and it's like along the lines of like Jeff Alberts, Eric Helms, like they and you are all examples of like just remorseless, like never giving up. And I think those are the coolest stories. Kind of like an underdog story. It's like, and it is cool when like you get an athlete that's just like an anomaly that wins like within their first three shows. That's amazing too. That's cool in its own way. But I think it's really awesome. Just the whole concept of not giving up and just getting after it over so many years. Super honest question for you. After going through so many years of competing and like even those years of prepping or starting a prep and they canceling shows like within the COVID years, like were there periods of time where like you felt self-doubt or like you questioned what you were doing? Like did you think did you ever get close to just saying like, hey, like I don't know if I want to do this bodybuilding thing anymore? Like what was your experience as far as that goes?
yeah, 100%. I probably had like three or four of those. The first one was actually my second show that I did. It was I think it was like the BC Provincials, I believe it was called at the time. But it was actually an enhanced show. So I did I believe it was called the Kelowna Classic back in 2014. And the year after, I did the BC Provincials in Vancouver. When I did that show, like, I remember I came like eighth, but that prep was also like pretty brutal too. Like, I remember it getting even leaner, but I believe I just completely like messed up the peak and everything like that and then I was having some issues with my relationship at that time that just added more stress, like literally on like show day and all that kind of stuff. So during that, I was like, oh man, like I don't know if I want to keep doing this. Like for pretty much like a month after, like I always loved training, so I still train, but I'm like, man, like I don't know if I really want to go back to it. And then a couple years later, I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm like, oh, I need something to like work towards again. I was just kind of getting bored in the gym, and I'm like, okay, I might as well just try doing another show, do it maybe smarter, make it like less difficult. Um, so I did another show, and then there was another time um, when I did. I guess there was when I did nationals. So when I came back after that, I did the Kelowna Classic again, and actually won my class. I think it was a massive class too. Not quite the same level of competitiveness as we have now, but there was I think about 19 or 20 people in my class ended up winning that class. I'm like, oh shit, like that kind of amped me up a little bit. And then I did the BC Cup, 2 weeks later, which I came second in. And I'm like, okay, like this is going quite well. And then I'm like, okay, there's nationals next year. So I did prep for nationals that next year. That was in Montreal. So I flew out there, spent like a lot of money on that prep, and like we did a little vacation and stuff out there after. But when I did that one, I didn't really practice my posing much. So like I feel like I just kind of made a fool of myself a little bit with my posing, especially at the national level. I didn't know there was going to be what was called like an eye walk at the time, and like last minute, like or like the day before, like oh, there's going to be an eye walk in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, I'll just like wing it, it's fine. Like I just wasn't really into like the posing. I just like getting super conditioned at the time. So when I did that, I just kind of I felt like I just kind of messed up my posing quite a bit. And I think that's a thing that made it so I didn't place well. I'm like, oh shit. So after that one too, I was kind of, it was weird too, because there's only two people in the class. They split up. It was at nationals, but they were doing height classes for men's physique. And like some classes had like two people, some classes had like three, some classes had like five or six. I was in a class that there's only two people, and I came second. So I'm like, it was just kind of a weird setup there. So I think that just kind of made me like, oh, like I don't know if I want to do it again. And then it was, yeah, I think 2020. That would have been 2017. Then yeah, 2020 comes again, and I'm like, oh, okay, like I'll do it again. But so like during those time frames, I wasn't really prioritizing weak body parts in between. I was kind of just having fun with training, just going about that process in the off season, not really tracking or trying to um, have my weight go up slowly over time. I was kind of just winging the off season. It wasn't until I think it was 2019 where I really started to get super serious with like off seasons. Um, but and then the last time for in 20. Well, I guess there was like two times when COVID kept getting canceled, and I would go through the prep, and like that in itself, I was like, okay, man, this is getting really frustrating. But I don't know. It's always kind of like you do it, and then like if you don't get the best outcome, sometimes it can not feel the best, and you kind of just have to recollect your thoughts, like, oh, is it worth it again? And then you kind of miss that struggle with prep. I find there's always so much you can take from being in like that struggle and having that extreme focus towards something. I always get so much happiness out of it. Whereas when I'm doing just training for fun and not really having any specific goal in mind, I find motivation just kind of dips off over time. So with just having that big picture of like getting that pro card in like 2020 or 20, like that was kind of okay. Like I want to at least try for this in the WNBF, and then I was finally able to get it. But
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because yeah, like the prep itself is each of them are they're always hard, but it is interesting how like it just resonates with me that like we prep, it's tough, but yet we crave it, even though it's so uncomfortable, and even if it doesn't always go as well as we want, it's like we're still kind of looking forward to the next one. That's awesome. Okay, so they kind of going back to the winning the pro card, they had you on stage, they got you in the center of the stage, then they kind of moved you to the side, then they moved you back in the center. You're waiting, they finally call your name, you won the pro card. What how did you handle that? Like what was going through your head? It's been you've gone through so many preps at this point. This is your eighth or ninth competition,
yeah,
and like you finally did it. You won the big thing that, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
yeah. It was
What
just
can you describe it? Yeah.
it was a really big sense of just like peace. It just felt like something was like lifted off my shoulders. Like I was just like finally in a place where I'm like, okay, like it was very cool. Like I was like I don't know, like that's like the biggest thing I would say is just like felt like something was lifted off my shoulders, and I could finally just like chill for a sec and like soak in that moment, and be like happy for myself in that moment. So yeah, that was kind of like the biggest thing was just be like, okay, like man, like I finally did it. Like it's only been like chasing after this since like 2020, and then like been competing for this long and trying to get to that pro level, right? So no, and then yeah, though it just made me think back to like those moments where I went through with so much struggle and was so close to quitting, and it's like, okay, man, like this is like made it so much more worth it, and like now it's like, man, like now I can finally compete as a pro. Now I have like an opening for other things to do, like try to compete on like the pro stage, maybe try to make it to world. So like I was just thinking of all those things that like I got opened up to now. Um, with getting the pro cards. So yeah, no, it's because like once I got it too, like because I was originally thinking of possibly doing the Edmonton show, um, but I was like, man, like I got this pro card. This was the main goal for this show. This other show, the WNBF Edmonton show, my clients are going to be competing in it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna let them like go about that. I'm not gonna try to compete against them with it because I would just feel bad if I was to place
Just
in
clean up,
front of it. Yeah.
beat all your clients. Like, sorry guys.
Yeah. Not to say I would. Like, I don't think I would have gotten the pro card. I think was it Ken that got it at the Edmonton show. I think he would have destroyed me, but yeah, I was just like I was in a good place. Like after that, I was like, okay, like mission accomplished for the season. I'm in a good place, like mentally. I know if I like go into a recovery diet out of this, like it's gonna be very smooth. Now I can focus on continue building because the feedback I got from the judges is like for the pro stage, get a little bit more conditioned, um, and then bring some more size. Like if I'm wanting to compete at the world's level, even men's physique dudes are just massive. So I'm like, okay, like I might as well spend more time building. Me doing another show is just going to take away from the time spent building. So I'm like, you know what? I'd love to do that show. Like it'd be cool to see if I could get in more condition than I did for the Vancouver show, the 2023 season. But I'm like, is it really worth it? At the end of the day, I was like, okay, I don't think it's worth it at this point. So I'm just gonna go into a recovery phase, go into an off season, and continue progressing.
Yeah, I get that. Makes the most strategic sense. Plus, I mean, mission accomplished anyways. Um how long that feeling that you experienced, like that, the as you noted, this like that peace that you felt, it's like relief, pressure off your shoulders. Did you find that, like, are you still kind of feeling the high of that 3 months later, or is it like, because you know how, at least for me, I've heard like a lot of pro card winners, they'll say like, yeah, it's just like I won the pro card, but it, it's just a pro card, like life's not that much different or anything. And like I get that too. I understand that. But from your perspective, like it's been 3 months. Are you still kind of like riding the high from that? Like, do you notice much of a difference? How has it impacted things so far for you?
I would say from a training standpoint, it's got me more excited to train. Like I think it's just like Eric Helms, like once he got his pro card, he's like, oh man, I just want to all in bodybuilding. So there's a sense of that where I'm like, okay, it gets me excited for what's to come. So from a training standpoint, yeah, like it's been, I think, feeding that a little bit more than say if I wouldn't have gotten it. From like the relief, the kind of just like the joy, the kind of taking that stress off my shoulder, like that kind of feeling probably lasted like 2 3 days, and then it was kind of okay, back to normal life, and just kind of go about like training and like working and all that kind of stuff. So like currently right now, like it almost feels like that was like quite a long time ago now. Like I'm not really like riding that high too much. But it's more so the training. I feel a little bit more just focused, kid. Like I want to make sure I lock in with training so I can be compete at a pro level and actually try to get into the top three or something like that.
That's cool. It's like you've literally leveled up at this point, and now it's like, okay, now we're leveling up to take it to these pro shows. That's super exciting. Um, have you found, like, you're a fantastic physique coach, a prep coach. I
Thanks.
know that just from seeing like what you've shared on Instagram, how well your clients are doing and how great that they look. So I think that's like a good reflection on you as a coach for sure. Have you found that, and that was like, I mean, you were a great coach before you had the pro card, let alone after the pro card. So,
Thanks.
but my question is, have you found that you winning your pro card has affected your coaching business in any way, or has it been kind of just the same?
To be honest, like I don't think it's impacted it too much. Um, I feel like it gets impacted better if I get somebody a pro card. So like if one of my clients gets a pro card or it looks really good on stage, then people generally ask them and then they refer to me. But yeah, for myself, like I'm trying to think if I had anybody specifically reach. I think there's probably a couple people that reached out due to the pro card, but I wouldn't. It wasn't like an overwhelming amount of people like reaching out now for coaching because of it. It was yeah, pretty much just the usual amount of general people reaching out for coaching. I think it was pretty much a little bit more once like Travis got his pro card. Then I got a little bit more people reaching out with that as well. Um, but yeah, no, it's interesting because like yeah, like I think back, say like 5, 10 years ago when you got your pro card, I feel like more people were more prone to kind of oh like I gotta get coaching from this guy. But I think people are starting to get a bit smarter in the way they pick coaches and making sure that they can get athletes there rather than just like them because usually like somebody's coaching us or when we're going to the stage. So, yeah, yeah.
Do you find that you mostly work with people that are kind of local around you, or like are people working you from kind of all over, like internationally, the U.S. and Canada and different parts of Canada? Or
I would say for bodybuilding or like for competing, yeah, definitely more locally in Edmonton um, or in like the Alberta area. Um, I have gotten a couple from like the states in terms of competing as well, but or people reaching out for coaching from the states as well. But have a couple people from there right now. Um, yeah, I would say probably yeah, mainly local. Some people from like Kelowna, some people from Vancouver, some people from like Ontario and stuff like that. But I would say yeah, the good majority is definitely local.
got it. Okay. Um, so interesting question. This is kind of rewinding a little bit, but after doing as well as you've done at this point, and I know I want to ask you more about like how you're like when you're specifically you're planning to like make your pro debut and what you're hoping to get out of that and like what the next steps are going to be. um Before getting there though, if you could go back in time to a younger version of you, let's say whenever you were kind of like really getting the hunger to do well with natural bodybuilding, like to win the pro card or just like to win shows, like if that was 2020 or if that was 2014 or before that, whenever that was, like if you could go back to that younger version of Brandon to kind of like prepare yourself for the journey that you had ahead, all these preps ahead of you, all the competitions that were coming up, all the struggles that you're going to face, if you could like give yourself a little bit of advice, what do you think you'd say to yourself?
I would definitely like get a coach for sure. Get a coach, get a posing coach too. That's a big one as well. Like for posing, like I've seen it so often with the first timers that their posing isn't quite up to par, and like it just causes them not to showcase their best self, and it oftentimes causes the placing to come back a spot or two. So like posing is definitely very very important, and that's one thing I definitely struggled with for a lot of my first shows. They're like, oh, like I just care about the process. I care about getting lean. I don't really care about the posing. Like um, so yeah, getting a posing coach. There's so many people out there nowadays that do posing coaching. So that would be a big one. When it comes to like doing a show, just more time. Like spend at least like give yourself at least 20 weeks to do a competition. If you're doing men's physique, yeah, like at least 18 to 20 weeks, especially if you're starting at a lower body fat. If you're doing like bodybuilding, that could be 25, 26 weeks, maybe 30, depending on where you're at. For me, I always naturally sat quite low. So, yeah, but I would still recommend giving myself at least 18 weeks for it. Um, so those would be the big ones. Yeah, and another thing is just try not to let it take over your life too much when it comes to like when you're in prep. Like you want to make sure you're checking the boxes with your nutrition, with your training, but trying not to like be a dick to others or trying not to not do certain things because of competing. It's tough, like especially in the last like 4 weeks, like even like this last competition season, I was like, yeah, I don't really want to be doing other things outside of it. But trying to allow for some of that during a competition prep, because I feel like though there's like that dimmer switch and everything with bodybuilding where you want it cranked up as you get closer to the show. We do also want to have times where we pull back, kind of refresh a little bit, so that we're not going to get burnt out from the sport. Because I think when I did those first shows too, some of the ways I was feeling, I think it was because I was being more restrictive than I needed to be for those competitions. So by the time I finished the show, I was more so just focused on like winning rather than the outcome and stuff like that. And I felt like I, yeah, neglected family or relationships at those times. Um, which once I completed the show, I was like, oh, okay, I was kind of being a dick to this person, and then I was just like, okay, like, do I really want to go through this process again? Do I really want to be this person again? So just understand, like, if I could go back, yeah, just be like, hey, man, like, you can still go out and do these things. You can still go out and have some fun. There's a lot of ways to go around to like drinking and stuff like that with Diet Cokes and hang out with friends that way. Um, and you don't need to be drinking to hang out with people. As when I was younger, anytime I was socializing, especially in like the early 20s, um, late teens and stuff, like, there's always alcohol involved. I was very introverted, so I always felt like I needed alcohol to socialize. So when I was in a competition prep and there's these events, it's like, man, I feel like I need to be drunk to be here. But then when I done more preps, I'm like, okay, I can actually go to this event and not be like messed up and still have a good time. And sometimes even have a better time because I'm not like messed up the next day and I'm feeling good. And yeah, so those are probably some of the big ones, I would say.
Yeah, I can relate to so much of that. Honestly, I know this is like the advice that you would have given yourself, but I feel like that's also the advice that you should have given my younger self too. Um, one thing I'm curious about is those like events or like spending time with family, not not being a jerk to people, not saying no to everything, like not basically shutting yourself in, caving yourself in, and kind of allowing yourself or getting yourself out to spend time with family. Did you find like for this last prep, like was that still a tough thing for you to do? Like, were there points within those like last 10 pounds for the prep diet itself that it was tough for you to, and I know you mentioned like the last 4 weeks, you kind of did need to just turn the dimmer switch up and focus on the prep. Definitely get that. But like, even before that, did you find like there's some times where it was like, okay, we're going out for dinner with the family and you're like, shoot, oh man, I actually like, I know I should go and I am going to go, but I'm going to struggle with it because I know I'm not going to be able to order as much as I want. And like, I'm probably going to be hungry when I'm like, did you ever find that that was tough? And if you did, like, was it something that you just kind of white knuckled your way through it? Or did you like have a mental process of being able to actually enjoy yourself, like focus on your family and not think about being hungry and the food or like,
Yeah.
big question, but what was your
Yeah.
strategy or what was your process as far as that goes?
So since we moved to Edmonton not too long ago, like we don't know like a ton of people out here. So in a way, that was kind of a hack for like not having quite as many social events going on, and like families in Kelowna and like on the island and stuff like that. So didn't really have a ton of pull with that, which again was nice. I think that's probably did it make prep a little bit easier. But I did have times where I did meet up with like old friends here, to grab like a drink or to have some food and stuff like that. I went to like a Mario Kart drinking party, with a buddy out this way, and I don't know. Like I feel like this time, like especially when I get into prep, like I don't feel this need to drink. Like though people are drinking around me, like I'm good just to like chill. Um, when it comes to the food, and stuff like that, like since my calories are like decently high, like majority of prep they're between like 25 to 2,700 calories on my low days, so I still had quite a bit of room to fit things in. So if I had one of those events, say, um, like I didn't really have too many where I had to like actually go over on my calories, but if I did, I know oh, okay, I can just lower my calories a little bit the next day, or just take the refeed from this day and put it there. Do these little things to make it much smoother, rather than trying to, yeah, white knuckle. And I'm like, okay, I can't have any extra food here. I can't. Um, like can't have a drink. I can't do all these things. Like I try to just be like, okay, like I can still do think about all the things I can still do rather than the things I have to take away from the experience. I think
Right.
shifting your mindset
Yeah, yeah.
around that will definitely help. Um, but I'm trying to think what else. Like because my girlfriend and I, for a good chunk of the prep, probably the yeah, probably until like yeah 4 or 5 weeks out, we were pretty much eating out once a week. Um, with either getting skipped the dishes or going to a restaurant. Still tracking it, like fitting into macros, guesstimating things. Um, and I found that was kind of a nice day just to de stress and be like, okay, like we're not focusing on bodybuilding right now. Though bodybuilding is both on our minds. So, like, we were both competing. So, we're both just naturally talking about it a lot. But it was just a nice way to kind of get away from that a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. I like all of that. It's funny. I'm just this weekend. I'm going to meet up with my family. I'm going to stay at my mom's place. My brother and sister in law and some of their friends are going to stay over. And I know that 1 or 2 nights we're going to go out to eat. And already, like, I'm like 8 weeks into my pre prep diet, 7 weeks into my pre prep diet. So I still got super far. I'm still way off. But even so, I feel like a little bit of that mental kind of reluctance of like, okay, that means that for that dinner, because I think we're gonna go to like a winery restaurant or something like that. Obviously, I'm not gonna be drinking. I'll be DDing. I'm not a drinker really, anyways, even when I'm in my improvement season. But I'll just like order a salad with maybe ask for a little bit of extra protein with it or whatever, and I kind of know I'll be hungry afterwards, regardless of what I order. So like even now, I feel a little bit of that like mental reluctance about it. But you know what I felt has helped me is kind of some of what you've described, like just changing perspectives, like taking a little bit more of a flexible approach and what's really helped me is to just to kind of shift and think about, okay, it's not about it's not about the food anyways. Like it's like just hunger, it's just a feeling. So I will white knuckle it a little bit, but it's like, okay, it's just a feeling. If I am a little bit hungry, I'm just like going to focus on spending the time with the family. It's like that's what it's about. Social meal. It's not as much about the meal as it is about spending time with the family. And that helps me a little bit. But it's tough. Like I still find, like, honestly, it's still something that I'm learning is that in particular. I think like that's the hardest part is like social meals and allowing myself to not allowing myself to be flexible, but there is an element to that, but to shift my mental perspective to enjoy those kind of occasions more than I have in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So you after winning the pro card, you transitioned into your recovery phase. Now you're in your improvement season. You're more excited about building now that you've leveled up. Next time you compete, it'll be on a pro stage. So what are your future plans specifically? Like, when are you thinking is the next time that you're going to compete?
So it's still up in the air a little bit because Emma, my girlfriend, she really wants to compete next year in the Calgary show for the bikini category since she also got her pro card in bikini at the Kona show.
Oh
Um,
man,
yeah, so it was a
a
very
whole team.
yeah,
That
yeah.
must have been such an awesome day. Like everybody, like, anyways, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was a very very cool day to like we were both just on like the high and like got to share that moment together. And so
That's
it
so
was
cool.
I don't know, it was
That's
and
special.
the cheesiest thing was is that that's the show we literally met each other at. So it just full circle kind of moment.
Literally full circle.
But yeah, no, for competing, she's really wanting to do it next year for the Calgary show. For me, like I know if I do that show, I'm probably not going to see much of an improvement to my physique if I were to do that because it's just not really a long enough off season. So I don't think I'll do it. Like we'll see how I'm looking and we'll see how this off season goes if I can see some improvements, like kind of like I think Dirk did like um, not even a 1 year off season too, where he competed just that next year where he did recovery and then yeah did a little bit of a lean gain phase and then kind of went back into prep kind of thing.
Right.
That's a possibility, but the chances of that happening are probably quite low. Like I just don't think there's going to be enough of improvement for to make it worth going back into a prep. So I'm thinking like Calgary show either 2.5 to like 3.5 years from now to do that, see how I place at the WNBF Calgary show, and then see if I can make it worlds. So like if I can place like first or second there, then I'm like okay, like let's try worlds. If I go there and I'm like okay, I come like fourth or fifth or something, I'm like okay, like not quite at the world level if I'm getting this placing. So I'll probably go back into an off season and continue growing. But I'm thinking probably 2.5 to like 3.5 year off season to give myself a bit of time. Like we'll see with life if something comes up in life and I continue pushing it another 4 5 years. I don't think I could mentally handle pushing it that far. Um, but yeah, probably most likely 2.5 to 3.5 years from now.
That makes perfect sense. Building muscle just takes a long time, doesn't it? Like it's like I wish it was like we could just take us like 4 to 6 month off season. I mean, Dirk pulls it off, but I can speak for myself and say like I think it would be tough for me to see improvements on my physique in a short period too. So I definitely get that. Um, okay, and like, what would you say? Do you have like overall like how far do you want to take things? Like you want to get to worlds, whether it's the next season or thereafter. Like, do you have a certain goal, huge, big lifetime goal? Like you want to get a certain placing at worlds? Is that important to you, or like where do you want to take the whole pro natural bodybuilding thing from
Yeah,
here?
like the first thing I want to do is like, yeah, place top five or top three in like a pro show, and then top five at like worlds, and then work my way to like that number one spot. Like, see if that's like physically possible with my genetics if I continue just going through this for another 15, 20 years to see if eventually I can get up to that level. Because like even like I talked about with my girlfriend, like I just don't see myself ever stopping. Like there might be little things that pop up, like oh I might want to try doing this sport or doing this alongside of it. But like right now, I'm pretty kind of all in on bodybuilding, and since I got the card, now I'm like okay, like let's see how far I can take this. Um, and like been like I'm always with training and stuff like that, I'm always up for experimenting. Like I've been experimenting with training chest a little bit differently than I have in the past with like rib angles and stuff like that, seeing if I can, because I've one thing I've noticed with my physique is I haven't been able to build too much to my chest for the past. Like I every time I see my physique and like my photos, I'm like, oh, I don't feel like I've added too much to my chest. So I've been experimenting with like a different rib position. Connor, I can't remember his last name. He reached out to me and like
St.
shared
John,
this video. He competes as well. He's competed recently. What's his last name?
Connor St. John, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 100%. He shared this one video that like really helped him in terms of cueing for rib positioning and pressing and like focusing on actually like trying to press through protraction. And like so I've been getting into that a little bit more. Like my chest, I've been like, oh shit, like I haven't been actually sore near my sternum for like forever, and like now I've been just getting like sore constantly from chest training, and I've
Wow.
already noticed my chest like getting a bit more thickness closer to the sternum, and I'm like, huh, maybe there is something to this. So I'm excited to continue playing with this because if it works the way I want it to work, I'm like, okay, like maybe I can actually see some improvements to my chest and stuff once I do get to like next year. Maybe I can potentially compete, but I don't know how fast. Like it's gonna take time for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how sometimes it's just like those changes that you might never like pick up on if you're just like walking by someone at the gym. They're kind of like position kind of funny. Like it's just like seems like these small little shifts in body position like they aren't a big deal, but like sometimes it's the difference between making okay gains and like, wow, like, this is, we're actually making some real progress here. Um, you've definitely piqued my interest. I follow him on Instagram, so I'm gonna have to like take a deep dive in his Instagram page to see if he's got like something recorded on there, so I can
I can send you
keep.
the video he sent me. I can't remember the guy's name that created the actual video, but it's yeah, just something interesting. He is a little bit more broy when it comes to his standpoints, but like he kind of dissected a bunch of different like pro bodybuilders on how they generally press. And like he's kind of found that like people with like the biggest chest tend to press a bit more with their back flat with like slight core engagement, and the ribs down, and like I don't know, it's interesting. And so like I've been just playing around with it for a while. It feels very weird at first because I used to just try to arch like so high, like as possibly high as I can. Like Mike Israel used to like preach like just chest up as much as you can to kind of get a big stretch. But doing it this way, like I find when I actually do the pressing, like I can feel like the all my chest is lighting up like crazy.
Wow.
So I don't know. It's interesting, and like I always like the pump from it, and like just the soreness after. I'm like, okay, like I've never felt this kind of sensation, so maybe I was doing something kind of off before, because I used to always try to like I kind of allowed a bit more protraction in the last like 3 years, but the rib position was always like extremely arched up. So I've been flattening it. Think of like back is just flat against the bench. Any bench, like you're trying to get your back shape like the same as the bench. Very strange at first, but once you get used to it,
But
it
then it
feels great.
hits.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if it works, it works. That's for sure. I'm definitely curious. It's interesting. My chest, I feel like during my improvement season and when I'm not like super, super lean, I'm like, this could be one of my strong areas. But then when I'm like stage lean, it's like, where did everything go? It's like, this is not my, this is not a strong area anymore. So maybe it is an area that I should look at for myself too. Um, but no, that's awesome. Well, no, this has been awesome. An awesome conversation again, Brandon. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, not a problem at all, man. I'm just excited to see you because you're competing next year, right?
Yep. Yep. 20 it'll be late spring, early summer shows, I think. So,
Nice,
yeah.
man. Nice. That'll be good. Are you gonna have it probably not quite as long as last time, or are you gonna try to have it the same length?
Ideally not as long as last time. So last time the period in which I was doing the competitions was like it was a 2.5 month span. And I felt like honestly the last two shows I was having a tough time with those ones. So ideally if I can keep them within like maybe if I can compete 3 or 4 times within like a month and a half, that would be the ideal instead of 2.5 months. uh but we'll see. I've got my first two shows picked out. I don't know what I'll definitely do a third show, I think, and maybe I'll do a fourth show, but those are TBD. I don't know what they'll be yet. So but yeah, thank you. I'm excited for it. It's still got a ways to go, but yeah. Anyhow, yeah, this has been awesome. Congrats again on the pro card. I was super excited when I saw like yeah, I was very exciting. It was the day after I released our last episode and it was just like yeah, he won. But yeah, I'm really pumped for you and appreciative that you shared how it all went today. Where's I'll mention again that for anyone who's listening, that Brandon is a fantastic prep coach, posing coach as well. Um, where is the best place for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so Instagram is probably going to be the place where I'm most active, which is Brandon Emslie. Is my handle. And then YouTube, I do post a little bit on there. Like I'm thinking about maybe doing a little bit more long form content on there in the future. Really quite sure yet, but we do have a Lifting Nerds podcast that we do. I host with Adrian, where we release a new podcast every like 2 or so weeks. Which we just got a recent one with our counts, which was a lot of fun to do. And so those would be the two places. I do have like a TikTok and Facebook, but yeah, most active on Instagram for sure.
Sweet. Well, I'm going to share the links to um, to those spots in the description below. So for anyone who is interested in learning more about you and working with you, go check out those links. Check out the latest Lifting Nerds podcast that you guys hosted with Eric Helms. And yeah, thanks again, Brandon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.